All right. Well, can we delegate somebody to watch the AEW pay-per-views from now on and have like reporters in the field that just send us back the report we can plug? And now here's the report. And boy, howdy, this all in. I was certainly all in after watching it. I was exhaustified. But at the same time, Brian, do you know they actually went, I can't say they went short. You cannot apply a short to this program in any way. But when I recorded the pay-per-view on my Spectrum cable, thank you, Jason, they had a 5-hour window. And remember I said on the last show we did here in preface of this, I believe that there's the countdown show, the pregame show was 2 hours. And so what the fuck? But they actually, for once, they did the pay-per-view in 4 hours instead of the 5-hour window that at least I had on my local cable provider. And then it just cut off and it was thank you for ordering this pay-per-view. Whereas whatever you watched yours on, whatever streaming method or whatever it was, didn't you say you got like random stand-up comics and dick pill ads or some shit?
You know, it was kind of shitty with Xfinity. I decided to, I used to use the Bleacher Report app just because at least like you would have a copy of the event to watch it in the future if you ever wanted to. So I decided to do it on Xfinity this time. I figured I'd record it. The only record option, it was order or order and record. And if you did that, which I did, you had to record an 11-hour block. From 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So it ate up my DVR. I have to get rid of this thing. But also, after All In ended, there was, I want to say at least an hour of random comedians in different places, not even like in the same venue, doing their sets with Viagra commercials or dick pill commercials in between them. I was like, what is this doing on pay-per-view? The commercials, at least.
Possibly they got their feeds crossed. Maybe they were tapping into some unauthorized signal, but the pre-show on this, what do they call it? 0 hour? It was 2 hours long, but they only had matches for the last hour and 15 minutes of it. But they made up for it. They started the show, the pre-show, the show before the show, when people are still coming into the building. I'm not kidding. A 16-man tag team match. I don't even know what to say. As a matter of fact, I said, what the fuck? There's so many entrances and what the fuck, and you couldn't really visually know who was on whose side, so I didn't know how to write the names down. Did they report the result of this on the interweb anywhere?
Oh, let me find it, because I saw that it was taking place, but I did not watch the totality of the pre-show.
No, there was a couple of things we want to talk about, but I couldn't even keep track to try to write the names down of who was in this on what team. Can you give the report on this?
Yes. The team of Tommy Billington, the Dynamite Kid.
Oh, boy.
Kip Sabian, Rocky Romero, Kyle Fletcher, Leo Rush, Action Andretti, and Top Flight with Don Callis managing the babyface.
I was about, yes, again, what the fuck? The heel manager with a random 3 people on that team that you just enumerated, by the way. There are Mexican minis that are bigger than these people.
Well, they defeated the team of Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, Anthony Ogogo, Arya Davari, Private Party, and the Dark Order with Evil Uno and Sanjay Dutt at ringside.
Yes, in a 16-man tag team match, there were still managers and stooges at ringside. And was that just to confuse people as they came in? They're thinking, wait, what the fuck? Is this the Battle Royal? Did we miss the start of the show? What? Why would you? How many plane tickets did Tony Khan buy for people to just come over for the experience? Sort of like as when Crockett used to send the 16 top guys to the NWA convention for a vacation in Vegas or St. Martin or whatever. Hey, I got 150 people on the roster. Let's just fly them all to England. We'll figure out something. Felcher's team won. But here was a positive. As we're starting this thing, we started the compliment sandwich. I think they shot 50,000 people this year, better than they shot 80,000 last year. It looked bigger, didn't it?
I thought they did a better job of shooting the show this year than last year. And some people sent some photos saying, like, look, here are the empty seats. You know what? They did a great job on TV of hiding those because you didn't see them. And
yeah, if they have 30,000 empty seats in that stadium, they did a great fucking camouflage job.
I think actually, we rip on AEW production a lot, especially the audio, and there were audio issues here. Max Caster, you couldn't even really hear his rap. But they did a great job of shooting the room. Great job, I think.
The room, it's the whole damn house.
The house, they shot the house.
And, everybody was up for it. They were wearing their finest frocks. Aubrey Ed had her mane freshly groomed. Did you see that? Everybody was excited.
I don't think I've ever seen her with her hair out before a referee on a show.
Well, she didn't really. She didn't have her hair out. Out would indicate that she took it off her head and put it on the dresser table or something.
That's not what I meant. I mean, she didn't have her ponytail.
Her hair's always sticking out in some fashion from her. It starts at her scalp and it protrudes and exudes until the end of the follicleization. So it's always out in some fashion. It was out in different shapes. So apparently the big news is next year, AEW Grand Slam is going to Brisbane, Australia, February 15th of 2025. So apparently the advance for this year's Grand Slam, being a bunt at best, has propelled them to say, let's get the fuck out of here and is there that much interest? We've had some of the Cult of Cornette listeners in Australia say that we don't know if AEW is a big enough presence in this country to... Because anybody else from anywhere but Australia, they're going to have to fucking fly a ways, right? So you're drawing from the Australian populace.
I'm sure there'll be some people that travel, but you're drawing from Australia, and it'll be really interesting to see how this does, because I don't know off the top of my head too much about AEW's presence on TV in Australia or how they do. We talk so much about the numbers here. We've heard things about Canada and England. I don't know if we ever heard anything about Australia.
Well, they're over there in some fashion, but so is fungus on a shower curtain. Sometimes people don't know it's there, but so. And Arthur Ashe, after all he's done for them, after all the Grand Slam events in the past, after all he's done for them, they fuck Arthur Ashe. Isn't he from Australia? I asked you this the other day off air, maybe.
Yeah, you did ask me, and I didn't look it up. I don't think he is he?
Somebody who's from Australia that was of the tennis.
Arthur Ashe is from Richmond, Virginia, and he died in New York.
Well, did he live in Australia anytime in the middle of that?
Well, actually, he won the Australian Open.
Well, now, see, I could have been thinking about, my photographic memory sometimes isn't focused exactly. What about Rod Laver? Where the fuck is Rod Laver from?
Rod Laver is an Australian tennis player.
There you go.
Who looks nothing like Arthur Ashe, so...
Well, I miscommunicated the two. It doesn't matter. At one point, Rod Laver was trying to steal Arthur Ashe's identity, but they life-locked him.
Oh.
So anyway,
life-locked him.
Well, they'll shut that shit down right away. The reason I was watching on the pre-show was because the mixed tag team match. That when we previewed this thing, we said, what the fuck is going on here? Stokely and Statlander, that incredible tag team combination, against the long-running duo of Willow Nightingale and Ishii. And I was wondering why they would do this, and now that I've seen it, I'm wondering why they would do this. But it actually, for a few minutes, it was one of the more enjoyable things, that you would see on one of the AEW shows that might kind of resemble old-fashioned wrestling. It's a, heel manager, hopefully working like a heel manager, although he was dressed like Michael Jackson, Stokely, when he came out his entrance in, was that from when Michael Jackson was in Wembley or something? The announcers were blathering on about.
I guess I didn't hear the announcers. I had it on mute a lot, but Michael Jackson did play Wembley in 92, maybe 93.
Well, Stokely's a manager, but he decided he's going to impersonate Michael Jackson, and he came out to no reaction because they do nothing with him.
Is it a missed opportunity at Wembley not to have Emi Sakura, considering Queen's great moments at Wembley Stadium?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Don't give him any ideas.
Well, he's not going to be in Wembley for a while, so he has a few years to ruminate on it.
Well, but, ruminate or potentially salivate over. But anyway, Statlander got a pop, even though they hide her for this untalented bimbo that they've spent millions of dollars on, but they've had Statlander there the whole time. You could have developed something, and now she's just part of the wallpaper. And Willow, remember when Willow was getting over? And now she's on the pre-show and whatever the fuck, and the doctor is back in the house. And Ishii, if you saw Ishii headed into Kroger, you would hold the door open for the poor guy. Would you not?
What are you exactly saying? Because you think he looks old, or because...
I'm saying he looks like he's in advanced spinal stenosis. His body is thick, his head is hunched over, he has no neck, and he's practically fucking immobile looking when he's waddling down to... And they treat him like a Fabergé egg. Nobody wants to fucking touch him hardly. And again, all these Japanese guys have been in multiple car wrecks, it looks like, from Okodi on down. The only one they had that actually looked like he had all the function of all his body parts was our boy Take a Shit, and where'd he go? So,
to Japan.
Yes.
To Japan, that's where he
God
was.
damn it. What the... Why do they have all the shitty Japanese wrestlers and they gave Japan back the one that was good?
If you really think about it, from like last year to this year, there's been nothing but time and opportunity to turn Takeshita into one of the biggest stars in the company, and they've blown it.
Maybe he's not into the grind.
Or the booking.
Or the booking.
Maybe he's not into the booking.
The grindy booking. All right, well, the point is on this, the girls worked pretty much the whole thing, right, as they should, because you can't have Ishii working with Stokely, and that would kill. You can build up where when the manager finally gets his, but nevertheless, both girls went down and they simultaneous tags. And you don't do that either. You either let the manager tag in when he's lulled into a false sense of security because the fucking opponent is down, but something goes awry. Or at the very least, if the heel is in such bad need that he has to tag the manager tags in first and fucks up something so that the other guy, but instead they just tag, here you go. And Stokely comes in and Ishii no-sells his chops and everything, as he should. And Stokely took a couple bumps. And then Statlander saved Stokely and hits Ishii with a forearm and actually rocks him, that was cool for Statlander. But then Statlander shoots him, Ishii, into Stokely, who gives him a perfect spine buster. And I'm like, now they've lost me. God damn it. The manager did a spine buster.
At least Ishii no-sold it.
Well, yes, but then that's a double problem because, no, here's the thing. The manager, the little bitty Weasley manager, did a perfect spine buster, which is totally he shouldn't have done. He was just doing the bumps that he should have done, and then all of a sudden he's goddamn Arn Anderson. But secondly, Ishii popped up and no-sold it, even though the bump he took looked exactly the same, if not better, than most of the goddamn people's spine busters in this company.
Yeah, Stokely did a good job with that. It looked good, despite the ridiculousness
so it was stupid on both parts. He no-sold one of the better-looking spine busters given to him by the guy who shouldn't have been able to pick him up.
They said it was a tribute to Michael Jackson. I thought he was dressed like the new conquistador.
I think it was a tribute to fucking Stonewall Jackson. He just mowing now. He was starting to beat up Ishii for a minute, and then he came back with a power bomb, and then the girls started wrestling again, and then Ishii clotheslined Stokely 1, 2, 3. But anyway, it was. Do you think he put talents' names on sides of dice and then like rolled the fucking dice to come up with these matches?
Well, everyone in this match made sense other than Ishii. Again, I don't know what's happening on Collision or Rampage. Maybe there's been a big Ishii-Stokely feud. I don't know what those promos have been. But everyone else in this match, I mean, Stokely and Statlander have had issues with Willow. A handicap match would have made sense. But Ishii...
You know, and that would have been good, and that way Statlander could have finally got a little on Stokely, and, but no, he would have been power slamming her, I guess.
No, he was on her team. He would have been power slamming Willow.
Oh, that's right. Well, I don't know. See, throwing the dice. Think about that.
So far in the pre-show, we've had, what is that? Is that 20 wrestlers? 20 wrestlers and managers so far.
Well, hold on now. Well, we don't have a match coming up, but we got to talk about this. Tony Khan comes out arm in arm with Dr. Martha Hart. Or no, actually, it was Tony Schiavone came out arm in arm with Tony Khan, and then Tony Khan welcomed everybody and introduced Dr. Martha Hart. And Tony he was sounding like he was trying to talk and do the Tarzan yell at the same time. He was like, I'm going to say this about that. Like he was like Freddie Mercury trying to project at Wembley or what. Did you notice that even more so than normal? He was way up there.
Not everyone can yell into a mic. And Tony Khan, we see him at the press scrums and we see him do interviews. We know the way he talks. When he screams, it's not even like, it almost sounds like a fake yell. Like he's trying to project his voice differently than the way it would normally project if he yelled. It doesn't work well, I don't think.
So anyway, and this is the part where you had this on in the background as we were recording the first part of this show that never ends, ladies and gentlemen. And he introduces Dr. Martha. We have to say those three things in order. She can never be Dr. Hart or Martha or Mrs. anything, right? It's all three. But she started getting booed, and now I know why. And she saved it at the end. But she said, I'm so happy to be here. I came from beautiful Canada, and it's a boo. And then she said, Canada is good friends and neighbors with the USA, and then boo. I don't know what the... but then she said, but we are also proud to be members of the British Commonwealth. And then they're like, hey, okay.
She should have fucked with him and kept doing it. But we're also next to Alaska. Boo.
And we have a wonderful trade agreement with Mexico.
Oh.
Actually, is anybody mad at Mexico in the world except us? Or part of us? But
is Canada mad at anyone ever?
No, I don't think. I think they were. That one time they got pissed off amongst themselves at Prince Edward Island, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
But they managed to work that out.
Okay.
But anyway, so the reason why that she was there, apparently, I think I was trying to divulge, or not divulge this, but figure it out, divine this information, was to wish all the contenders that won the Owen Hart Cups, the men and women who she did not name, because I think she might have forgot. She wishes them good luck tonight. But once that she did her geography lesson and started into the reason why she was there, did it seem to you that she kind of lost her train of thought and struggled to the finish line and got out of there?
Not everyone is a public speaker, and I don't think Dr. Martha Hart is necessarily well equipped. A lot of people can't speak to a room of 50,000 people. That's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been one of those things.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was very clunky, I thought.
And you're back to calling them a room. It's a house. It's a whole house. Yes,
a whole house,
a mansion, even the Wembley Manor. Lord Fogg. But then we got announced too. It was announced, and we were privy to it, that Forbidden Door 2025 will take place in London on August 24 of 2025. So, but not, at least it was not divulged in Wembley Stadium. They didn't say where exactly it was going to be. So now they've given Grand Slam to Australia and Forbidden Door, which also has been in New York traditionally, right? Haven't they been there both times? Or
no, not both times, but it's interesting. If you think about it, Forbidden Door, I think, has been in May. I think one year it was in New York.
It was June last year.
Was it June? Well, June. It was in New York one year. Was it in Toronto the other year? I forget. But that's been in the spring.
Well, basically, the two markets in North America that Ring of Honor would think about bringing in international talent. But go ahead.
And Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe typically has been, September, October in the fall. And now that's going to be in Australia at the beginning of the year. And Forbidden Door is getting pushed back a couple of months to bring it to London. Is there anything, when you're just moving pay-per-view events around like that, does it matter, or does it matter more to the fans than any actual practical reason that would cause issues with buys or anything?
Complicated, possibly. I think with these fans, I think it's the pay-per-view and what's on it, who's on it, and, just the overall general malaise or lack thereof of whether the company is, interesting or not. But for the WWF in the day and the WWE now, it would hurt them in terms of their marketing planning and their arena planning and their ancillary. Are we going to need a convention hall in this town in June of a year and a half from now because it's going to be this certain pay-per-view? Or that would hurt that company because of so much of their marketing is based around the event. Not any of these things particularly are an event just because of the name of their pay-per-view. It's their fan base that's going to buy those knows who's going to be on them and what's going on, regardless of what the name of the pay-per-view is. Especially when one's all in, one's all out, one's World's End. The Forbidden Door can be open anytime you want it to be for that audience. And it just screws up TV in a different season.
It is interesting, though, because it has screwed up TV in the season, typically the spring the last few years. If you move it back 2 months, and then, let's say late June, July, August is all AEW, New Japan, CMLL, is it better to screw up your TV in the summer months or in the spring months?
Well, again, sometimes they don't fit the rules of thumb because their ratings this spring were worse than their ratings last summer, weren't they? So they're kind of, if they're continuing to trend ever so precipitously, slightly downward, then by that point, is it going to make a difference about the season? Or will they have stabilized by then?
Well, I don't know if there'll be any stabilization, but we shall see.
Well, speaking of stables, somebody need to clean the shit out. So here came, still in the pre-show, ladies and gentlemen, and I hate to say that about some of the people in here, but what do you follow a 16-man tag team match and a mixed tag team match with on a pre-show before you start your main show? A 10-man tag team match. Playa. And this was Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, Tia Leone, Bishop Khan, and Brian Cage against Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, the Von Erich boys, Shapoopy, and their manager, Kevin Von Erich. And I don't know that as much as you have to give all the respect in the world to Kevin Von Erich as a wrestling legend. And his boys, and I've worked with them in MLW, they're just as fine as they can be. But did you need to buy these three guys plane tickets to be in a dark match when they've barely started with the company and haven't even been on fucking Wednesday night television yet?
I think Tony likes creating moments, and he got the moment of Kevin Von Erich doing the Iron Claw at Wembley Stadium.
Okay, did you need to fly over Tia Leone and Bishop Khan?
Again, this is the pre-show, and this is the second multi-person match.
There have been 30 people 30 legal participants plus managers and seconds in 3 matches on the fucking pre-show. And as they had a jump start and did a big 10-way on the floor, and as you mentioned, the Von Erich's team won, and then Kevin got in and put the claw on Taven, and all the baby faces got claws on all the heels. But now think about this. There was one thing wrong. What was wrong, Brian?
What was wrong with what?
What was wrong with all the baby faces getting the claws on all the heels led by Kevin?
None of them have ever done the claw before?
No. The heels didn't have a manager. So therefore, they were one off. When Kevin clawed Taven, that meant now the heels were outnumbered by the baby faces. So one heel, I don't know which one it was, got a fucking head claw and a stomach claw on him at the same time from 2 guys. Oh, what the? It's in England. It's not fucking Dallas.
Did you see Kevin Von Erich's flip-flops tucked into the back of his pants?
Yes. He wore them out on the entranceway, but coming down the ramp, I kicked them off and stuck them in his fucking pocket so he could be barefoot. But I'm not wishing any of the Von Erichs ill, and the rest of these guys were superfluous to this fucking show, but technically the Von Erichs were too in this instance. I would like to ask the Cult of Cornette audience out there, somebody, old Thurston Howell from WrestleNomics, somebody good with numbers and mathematics. You may need to use a calculator for this, because I want somebody to figure out how many people that you can classify as talents on the show were on the show. Wrestlers, managers, seconds, valets, referees, just people in it, not even announcers and agents and security, but just the people in the ring or in the periphery of the ring. They had to get to 100 easily, didn't they?
How many family members you think Tony paid to fly over?
Well, that's everybody's family was there. It was, and
it's like AEW's annual paid vacation. You just have to work a major stadium show.
Well, and now some people, they were from England, so their families who lived there, and you can see Danielson, because that was part of the story. But there was a lot of, and then they're slapping their own mother. They're mother slappers. We'll get there. But anyway, so we had the what was it? The 16 man, then we had the 10 man,
Yes.
and the mixed tag, and now
The woman and man.
the woman, there was a person and a woman on each team. However you want to phrase it.
I did not want to phrase it like that.
Well, you did before.
But not this time.
You've learned your lesson, eh?
I did then, I don't now.
All right. Anyway, I'm thinking here comes Saraya. And I'm like, okay, we're in England, the Knight family. She comes out with her entire family, or 7 or 8 of them. They started appearing. There were more every time you looked. And old Harley, don't call me Dave Cameron, was with her. But I'm thinking, okay, we're in England. This is the former Page. This is the Knight family. Certainly they're going to be well received. And she got a smattering of applause. And then Harley did a heel promo. And then Saraya did a heel promo. And I'm thinking, why are they turning the people on Saraya, who at one point was a big acquisition? Remember them days? On the pre-show in her hometown. Why? Why, I say? Answer me.
I don't know exactly. Seemingly every member of her family and girlfriends too, I'm guessing, or wives or whatever. I mean, everyone was out there. I've never seen an entourage like this. It was like the Hart family on steroids.
Yeah,
or booze.
Or something.
Yeah.
And so she's doing the heel promo. Last year I won the title here. This year I'm not even on the show. Well, you're out there in the ring, so technically you're on the show, but I know what we mean. And I'm thinking, is this Mercedes' future? The fanfare, the big signing, the game changer, and now, yeah, send her out on a pre-show.
Yeah, you know what the difference is, though? Mercedes can control her creative more than Saraya ever did. Not to say that her creative would have been any different, but Mercedes at least has control.
She can get more of it. It might not be better, but she can have more of it.
Yeah.
And then they played the music, and out came, after almost a year, right? Out came Jamie Hayter, dressed somehow as a female Ronald McDonald. I don't know what, but they brought Jamie Hayter back on the pre-show? What? And she beat up all the family, female and male.
Oh, she threw one guy into the steps.
Yes.
It looked good.
I bet it didn't feel good. And then Saraya's mother hit her from behind, and Jamie turned around and snatched her. And then as she was going to nail the mother, Saraya came and hit Jamie Hayter from behind, but Jamie didn't sell it because she just leveled Saraya's mother. And then turned around and did the big drawback, why I oughta. And Saraya rolled out. But, yeah. So, and then finally, Jamie clotheslined Harley and they popped. But why in the pre-show just because you're just going to do it? Why not on national TV with a big, some kind of fanfare otherwise than you just attacked the woman who's bitching that she was in a title match last year and this year she's not even on the show. And you attacked her on the pre-show. So how important does that make you?
And by the way, it's the opposite with Jamie Hayter. She wasn't on the show at all last year. She was hurt. And that was going to be her big thing. You know, she's from England. She would have been on the Wembley show. She wasn't. Then we recently heard that her and Britt Baker aren't going to be working together because of personal issues.
Oh, I thought all the personal issues stopped when they got the cancer out of the patient.
Well, he wasn't in the women's locker room. Well, maybe he was, actually. I don't know. But, you know, they said he was giving them all gift cards. So maybe he was aware of this. Yeah. I don't know. But my point before you...
Before I interrupted you was it was going to be her moment last year.
It should have been. And now she's back. And, you know, for all the problems with the AEW women's division, and Saraya, by and large, has not been a net positive. And Mercedes Monet's stuff is just not connecting.
It's a net not.
And I think more people are noticing deficiencies with Britt Baker. I mean, just there's a lot of things that are wrong. If you want to look for positives, You know, there are various things. Anna Jay over in Japan right now. And Jamie Hayter returning. Jamie Hayter is WWE quality. And I know some AEW fans may get upset by that kind of comment, but Jamie Hayter is really good. She has to be used well. She has to be booked well. She has to be programmed well. But this is a big positive for AEW having her. Now, bringing her back on the pre-show, I don't know. That's not going to cause someone to buy the pay-per-view, I wouldn't think. Right? I mean, that's not really a...
Well, if you wanted to buy it to see Jamie Hayter, you just saw her.
You just saw her. You don't have to pay. So, any thoughts on any of this?
No.
What did you think of Brian Cage and Sammy Guevara both being dressed like Wolverine?
Oh, I
on opposite teams, they had the same.
Possible.
They had the same exact colors, the same exact. Like they were both dressed like Wolverine.
Well, they're all dressing up as later on the Buckaroos were Sergeant Pepper.
Right, but it wasn't Sergeant Pepper against Sergeant Pepper. There were Wolverines on different teams.
I see your point, but they should have compared notes. But you're competing Wolverines. You know what? If they had added that to the fucking match, it would have probably been more interesting.
What, actual Wolverines?
Actual Wolverines, one on each side. But they got to be tagged in legally.
What do you think of Jamie Hayter returning, though?
Well, again, you know, it would have been nice if it was a big, important thing that had been dramatically foreshadowed and built up instead of her coming out on the pre-show and beating up a bunch of family members of someone. And, bleh, I mean, they liked it because she was local, but it wasn't like it set the world on fire.
You know, for all the, like I said before, all the bad things in AEW women's division, there's Anna Jay, there's Jamie Hayter, there's Willow Nightingale, there's Chris Statlander. You know, I want to put someone like Julia Hart or Sky Blue as far as potential is to be on the list, but, you know.
Where did they go?
They got hurt. That's the issue.
Oh,
how many of
Jesus
these
Christ.
women just constantly get hurt versus the ones who, I mean, that's a wrestling-wide problem. It's not just about the women, but it happens to them a lot. And but there are some promising things with the AEW women's division right now.
Promises.
Mina Shirakawa.
Oh, come on.
Let's go.
What in the world are you?
Is that an invite?
You're starting to watch the women's division over there for reasons other than their technical prowess and expertise.
Real quick before we move on, I think she was on one of their shows this past week, so I had it on in the background. It must have been Collision, so it definitely, or maybe it was Rampage, I don't even know. But I wanted to watch it to see, like, okay, let me really watch her, like, work with whoever it was. I don't even remember who the opponent was, because I turned it off after this. She came out on the stage, and, you know, she looks good, a very attractive woman. She starts doing a dance. It didn't end. It was like, it was just a routine she was doing on the stage, and I was like, what the fuck? What is this? And then I started thinking, like, when did wrestling become, okay, what is your stage dance going to be? But I turned the channel. I didn't see the match.
Well, but at least you saw the dance.
Some of it. It chased me off.
Well, speaking of chasing people off, they decided to do some type of ploy, a pay-per-view ploy or whatever, where they had the entrances for the first pay-per-view match on the pre-show. So, because there were I'm trying to figure out how to say this. There were 4 3-man teams all vying for the 6-man tag team title. There, did I get it out correctly?
Other than the titles being the Trios Championship, yes.
Well, but I want to sound like grown-up adults.
But they started the entrances on the pre-show. Did you get the Minute of Black screen?
No, because I was zipping through those entrances, and when I saw that the fucking pay-per-view was actually popping up, because that went for a while. So, but I don't know that mine was. I think we've established I had a different provider than you, so I think mine was a little snappier all the way around. They came up and they came down. They didn't give me Viagra ads. They didn't inundate me with stand-up comic routines. They just got into the thing and out of the thing. See, you can hear my fingers snapping now, right?
I can.
Why was it a London ladder match for the 6-man trios title?
Because they were in London.
Then technically it would have been a London Coffin match and a London FTW title match. And Did you notice that apparently in London the ladders are shorter?
There were a few different sizes. Like at one point, someone was on one of the big ladders, and then the person next to him was on the smallest ladder I've ever seen in a wrestling ring.
And then they brought out a giant one that was so fucking tall that when they tried to set it up, it almost knocked the belts down. But they were a different construct over there, as were the tables. We'll get to that. But again, the House of Black versus Juice Robinson and the Guns against Claudio and Pac and Useless against Cage and Dino Douche and Nick Plain. And Nick Plain's mom is out there. There's 3, 6, 9, 12, lucky 13 people there. So that brings our show total as the pay-per-view begins to almost 45. And now they've got a ladder match where there are 12 people involved, all of them in the ring at the same time with the ladders and no disqualification. And what would you even remember about this to discuss afterwards? It's just endless. But did you notice the tables are different in the UK as well?
Yeah, I did. Different color and different texture, I guess.
Well, a different material, and I don't know. Oh God, it's not Formica. That stuff is hard, like countertop stuff. No. But not balsa wood either, but the point is, these tables, every time that they would fucking land on one, it would break. Did you see clean across? Just clean. There's some kind of, I don't know, particle board or whatever, but they don't break your fall nearly as well as their American counterparts. Even one time, they broke, just snapped off the last foot of the thing. Whereas, remember, it always breaks in the middle or elsewise you ain't going to break. This thing would just break wherever the fucking weight landed. And I'm thinking, holy shit. And, it's ridiculous that you can't keep track of what the fuck's going on. Did you see, though, the one thing I do remember, Juice crotching himself off the ladder, the giant ladder, off the ladder onto the top rope.
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
What the fuck? There's a way that you can do that where you don't neuter yourself instantly, but I don't know from that height and that velocity that he necessarily snagged that all the way. That had to be uncomfortable. But finally, Pac won. Yay! He's the home country guy. But now Claudio, and Useless are where's the plumber?
I don't know. This is kind of like when Lando replaced Han Solo. Pac now with the BC. Is he a member of the BCs? He was out there celebrating with Danielson, too, at the end.
Well, yeah, he's official now because they've got the belts. And I think it's more like when Joe DeRita stepped in.
We've made more references to replacement stooges in the last several weeks than any wrestling podcast ever.
Well, and some more stooges still need replaced. But this was 20 minutes plus the entrances, by the way.
What did you think of the ending with House of Black raising the hands of Pac and kind of saluting him and leaving?
Well, you never know what the fuck they're doing anyway. And where have they even been? Have they been exiled permanently to Saturday nights?
For the most part, I think.
That's why nobody knows where they are. I guess, we'll show him that, because aren't they from similar countries over there somewhere? Some of them?
I think Malachi's Dutch, maybe? And Brody,
no, he looks
Brody King's from the
States.
I think Brody King's from the States and Buddy Murphy's from Australia.
Well, yeah, we'll see they're kindred spirits over there, and as part of the, is Australia under British rule?
No.
Have they been in the past?
I think that's where, isn't that where the British used to send their prisoners?
Well, see.
In the distant past?
Yeah, and France gave us Louisiana as a penal colony.
And that's how the West was won.
Well, speaking of penal colonies, it was time for the women's title match. Tony Storm wrestled Maria May. Tony Storm wrestled Luther. Tony Storm had Luther with her. And apparently the woman that Maria May slapped at ringside was her own mother. Do we have a causal effect on that? There's how dare she? She slapped her own mother.
Has that ever happened in wrestling history before?
I don't think so.
That big Cora and Debbie Combs feud, that never happened?
Well, she was never Cora. It was Lady Satan.
That's right. Actually, I was just joking about them being family in wrestling. I didn't even think they actually were working together. You're right.
Yes, no. Oh, they worked together 100 million times, but never but Cora was never Cora. But yeah, Maria's got a problem with Mom. Tony Storm gave Maria a pile driver on the steel stairs, and the match continued on. But at least Maria did get juice. So after we've seen 30-something competitors 40-something competitors in the first 4 matches, then the second match on the pay-per-view is the girls' match, and they've got blood already. So it's promising from here. But minutes after Maria, and yes, I'm not critiquing this match seriously because how can you? But minutes after Maria was pile driven on the steel stairs, she was doing missile drop kicks off the top rope. And finally, for the finish, they did a dramatic scene, I think taken from a Tennessee Williams play, where Tony was conflicted as to whether or not that she should hit Maria with the bloody high heel shoe. And finally, she decided she couldn't bring herself to do it and threw it down. So Maria beat her with 2 knee lifts and a pile driver. 1, 2, 3. And I wrote, this shit is so fake. What'd you think?
You know, there have to be matches to kind of skip. And I didn't skip this thing entirely, but I didn't pay too close attention to it. I've appreciated Tony Storm's stuff in the ring in the past, but I just hate this gimmick so much, and it's just so over the top for me. Mariah May, new champion. She's been impressive. You know, of all the women they brought in, like, she's gotten the best push from the jump.
From the what? Oh.
From the jump, from the start. And now she's
I thought you said the push from the junk. I'm like, wait a minute. What kind of push and pull thing have we got going on here?
What arm of the service was your uncle in? No, what I'm saying is...
yes. What army was he with?
Mariah May has
Whose side was he on?
Mariah May has a lot of talent. You just got to hope this feud is over. Mina Shirakawa, watching from the crowd, looked very concerned. And on to the next match.
Well, it was at this point, Brian, where I thought, my God, it's actually Eastern time in the middle of the day when this is going on. But golly darn gee whiz, I need to take a nap. Did you feel the same way about taking a nap in the middle of this process?
It was kind of during this match because I was watching that pre-show. So it was during this match where it really hit me.
Yes. And folks, I'll tell you what, when you need to take a nap, now we're not even talking about a good night's sleep here, folks. We're just talking about a restful nap, a power nap. Some people take it, or if your kids take it, it's a kid nap. Whatever, just a short nap, a cat nap. Why don't they call it a dog nap? Dogs sleep all the time. You need a Helix mattress. Now, I'm suggesting right now that the business owners in the sound of my voice, they should probably check into getting all of their employees at least a small individual Helix mattress for their workspaces there in the office. Can you imagine that, Brian? You got a cubicle, you got a chair, a smaller desk to make room for the Helix mattress, a chair, a smaller desk, a little file cabinet, and then a Helix mattress right there on the floor. You can literally fall out of the chair and take a power nap on your 15-minute coffee break.
Famously, and there are photos of it, John Lennon worked from bed. He would sit there and just have papers and newspapers and, lyrics all around him, his guitar, and he would work from bed, not just the famous bed-in. Imagine if he had a Helix sleep mattress, and anyone you're talking about here, you don't need even a desk. You can just work on your mattress.
Well, there you go. You could save a lot of room there because just get rid of the desks, employers, and get your employees a Helix Sleep mattress because they got one for everybody. All you got to do is go to helixsleep.com and you take the little quiz that they've got, and that will tell you or tell them what you like, the positioning and the manner in which you sleep, and whether you're a giant, obese, morbidly corpulent son of a gun, or whether you're a little skinny skin and bones little lady. They got all the different kinds of pressure mattresses. Some of them they'll just fold up around you like a mother's embrace. And potentially you'll call the jaws of life to get out. But on the positive side, they can be delivered right to your door as soon as you go to helixsleep.com/JCE and fill out the aforementioned quiz. Boom, they bring it to your door, you unbox it, and you're sleeping like a baby. Waking up every hour, pissing the bed and crying. Brian, you know this. You got...
That's right, crying Brian.
Well, you got all your children. Wait, no, you quit crying when you quit pissing the bed. That was last summer, wasn't it?
Hey, you said you weren't going to say anything. What the fuck?
Well, I'm sorry, I forgot. But you have a Helix mattress for yourself and your beloved better half, and also for all of the little last children, and you even got one for Swami.
We have one in the guest bedroom, too. Whenever we have visitors, they're going to sleep on the most comfortable mattress we can give them, and that's Helix Sleep.
Well, now you know you're going to be having people beating on your door, trying to get in. They don't want to see you. They just want to sleep on a Helix mattress. You can do it in your own home, folks. Right now, go to helixsleep.com/JCE, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. 25%. That's more than we used to talk about. 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners right now. helixsleep.com/JCE. How can you beat that? We got them an extra 5% from what we used to be able to offer.
That's a great deal, and it's a great mattress, and we both have them in our houses, and we certainly endorse Helix Sleep, but...
I've got one of mine out in the backyard, actually.
In the backyard?
Well, yeah, in case you want to look up at the leaves on the trees and the branches and the shade, you just put it out under the old ash tree and just lay there.
What about stargazing? Do you like to stargaze?
Well, see, at night, you can see the stars, but you can't really see the stars in the daytime. But in the daytime is when you can have the nice sun and the refreshing weather on you, and at the nighttime is where the raccoons start dropping the daggum walnuts on your head.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the squirrels, too. They'll shit on you.
Well, enjoy those nuts with Helix Sleep. What's that promo code one more time, Jim?
JCE, and I'll tell you, they will send you a mattress free of squirrel shit. You have to apply your own by putting it out under the old ash tree.
That's right. That's the Helix Sleep guarantee. Helix Sleep. But I guess we have to wake up and
well,
go back.
You should finish the tagline. Helix Sleep, no squirrel shit.
/JCE.
It's going to catch on. So back to All In. Fozzy started playing. And is this one of their songs? Was this a cover? Was it an original composition? Was he singing? Was it only a nightmare? Did he have acid reflux and was crying for help? What was going on here with Jericho? Why? He's a heel now, and he's the learning tree, the most uncool, non-rock starish kind of persona you could have, but he couldn't resist playing rock star in front of a big crowd with his band. Is this what we're led to believe?
And he did exactly what Sebastian Bach always accused him of. He sang over his backing track when he came out there. And, his band, obviously, it's a big day for them to be able to play Wembley. They were very excited. That one guitar player is he's ready for the marathon. He's just all over the place.
Everybody in the band looks like they ought to be on probation.
But Judas was like the greatest example of Chris Jericho figuring out how to make a song that could almost be an anthem that people feel the urge to sing along to. Whatever he was singing here, whatever this was, if it was indeed music, I don't know, was atrocious. And again, he's a heel. And he's coming out there with his wacky little heel personality, singing whatever the hell that was.
But in the meantime, yes, here's some potential, what was it, light metal type of rock, type of growling thing.
That one guy had the adamant fucking paint across his nose.
Yeah, what was it? I thought maybe it was a surfer and he went too far. Why do they put the fucking shit on their face, right? Keep the sun at bay.
He's a new romantic.
Hey, now, don't say anything about my old friends, the Romantics.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You did know the Romantics.
They were big fans of me and the Midnight and Big Bubba.
And talking in your sleep, yeah.
Yes, well, they weren't around when I was talking in my sleep. They didn't write that song about me, but nevertheless, what they did write was, that's what I like about you, is what they wrote about me. See, all the things that they liked about me. Brought it to their mind.
Including...
All right. Anywho, and then after Jericho emoted to the ring, then here came Hook, and this time he didn't have the mummy wrap and the hat on. He had eye tape. He had it looked a little more like some kind of eye patch going on there. This was for the FTW title, and that means that there's no rules. No disqualification, anything goes, lazy booking. But here's what they did, and then here's why I don't like it. At the bell, all three of the heels, including Giant Bill, Large William, jump Hook, and it's legal because anything goes, but they get it. Sloppy heat on him, multiple splashes in the corner, the code breaker. Cover. Aubrey, is the referee just standing watching this? And every Hook will kick out or whatever, but every time the heels are staying in the ring like it's a handicap match. So then Hook fights back, and they have to figure out he's always got to kind of duck and top rope Bill and let his momentum take him out because he's a giant. And they beat Brian Keith like a rented mule every week. But then when he fights back against Jericho, they can just get in and do whatever the fuck they want at any time. So why don't, when they get dumped out of the ring, why don't they just come back in and fucking continue beating on him with a baseball bat or something? You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
It just looked ridiculous, and he's so small anyway.
Well, baseball bat or cricket bat.
Or a cricket bat. But because then Jericho pulls out a kendo stick, a cue stick, and a bag of cricket balls. But then Hook suplexes him so that Hook can get the cricket bat and hit all three of the heels, and then start chucking the balls at Jericho. And I know he was trying to throw him low so he wouldn't throw him directly into the goddamn crowd and bean somebody, but when you throw them low and they bounce off the fucking ring, then they're going up and out into the crowd. And, anyway, that's what Brian Keith comes in and knocks Hook out with a fucking trash can lid. Just because
Hook's tough. He had to fight opponents of 3 different heights.
Yes, short, medium, and tall. And then Jericho gets the walls, and Hook gets out of it and gets the walls, and then Bill just comes in and makes a save. And then they do more on the floor, and they pull out the table and the barbed wire board and the garbage can. But then Hook suplexes Jericho and pulls off the eye patch and points to his eye, which is unmarked, and screams, "I can see!" Then why you been fighting these 3 motherfuckers for 10 minutes with one fucking eye covered up? What benefit did this do? What the fuck? What sense does this make?
I will say, not only did I think this was the worst match on the show, but I heard from more actual talent that they thought this was the worst thing on the show by far, too.
Did you see the people on Twitter put up pictures of the line outside the men's room during this match?
Yeah, well, that was the other thing. And I thought it was a unique thing at first because I've never really seen feedback like that to anything where people were saying, hey, the lines are really long. But I saw Alan Blackstock tweet it out, and then a few of the listeners got in touch with us and said the same thing. And then I saw other people just hitting up other people saying it. The lines for the bathroom and for drinks were unbearable during the Jericho match. And then it may have been Alan Blackstock. I forget who said it. They said, you can get a drink in 2 seconds during that opening match. And then as soon as that match ended, everyone, they heard Jericho's music. They went to go take a piss because he was going to do the same thing in the ring. They went to go take a piss. They went to go have a drink because he was going to do the same thing after he got out of the ring. But no, this was not good. Hook throwing the balls at Jericho was embarrassing. He was 2 feet in front of the guy, couldn't hit him. And then he finally did hit him in the hip, I think, once. But
well, to be honest, Jericho kept turning sideways, covering up his balls.
If you're throwing something at someone and you're within like 5 feet of them, why are you aiming at their feet?
Because they had told him specifically, yeah, so why do it? It's stupid.
Yeah.
And so then, basically, somehow, Jericho swung the cue stick, but Hook ducked, and Jericho hit Large William. And he took an exaggerated fall through the barbed wire board on the table outside. And then Brian Keith hit Hook with Martha Hart's belt buckle. It makes a reappearance. I guess Martha brings it with her, I guess. And Jericho covered him and got a 2 count. And then Hook got the red rum on Jericho, and Taz finally saved this thing at the end. He got up and got it on Brian Keith, and the place exploded because it's Taz doing something. And Jericho tapped out, and Hook won.
I knew they had to do something with Taz. They had to get him involved because that's the payoff to end this whole thing. But this was really bad. I mean, the feud sucked, but this match was an all-timer in terms of awfulness.
But think about that. I won't belabor it. I'll ask it one more time and we'll move along. What benefit did it give? How did he sucker Jericho into anything by having his eye covered up for the first 10 minutes of the match? How did it benefit him? How did it
didn't
work against Chris Jericho? How was that big reveal a big turning point? And for what reason? No. Why do that? And why is his eye okay if Jericho really did fucking burn him? Because can we move on?
We certainly can.
Because it was 20 years ago today that I said those fucking 2 young bucks suck. And see, they still do years later. Here came the triple threat tag team title match, which of course means no disqualification. And the Buckaroos came out dressed like Sgt. Pepper. And again, why, if you're heels, why are you dressing
the movie version?
Well, yeah, they look more like Peter Frampton. But why are
more like Maurice Gibb?
Well, yes, actually, yeah, there you go. But why dress like the beloved British icon John Lennon if you're the heels? But nevertheless, they've got a wardrobe budget now. I'm sure all these outfits that everybody's wearing in this company, I bet you they're churning these out right and left for free. Or at least the talent pays nothing. FTR versus the Hardley Boys versus the Acclaimed. As you mentioned, also Caster's rap. I heard something about a penis, but you couldn't really make it out, could you?
I heard something about a penis.
Something about a penis.
Did someone say penis?
Well, that's the one word that was enunciated to my ears correctly. And this, so now, if you're keeping track, I was trying to jot it down. The first 7 matches have had 52 legal participants. And I was conflicted again it would be a relief after what we've seen so far to watch two professionals like FTR, but it's matter and antimatter because the Buckaroos cancel them out. And the three-way is the kiss of death about having a good match, so I basically got to the meat of the matter of this thing. I'm sure they did a wonderful smattering of stupid bumps and or Buckaroos standby spots to get to that point, didn't they?
That's the issue. FTR can mold a match. The Acclaimed are moldable. The Bucks work Buck stuff. They do their style, they do their match, it's their referee. And, that's the problem here. And I didn't enjoy it because of that.
Well, finally, speaking of not enjoying anything, Nikki hit Dax with the title belt and Maddie made the cover, but Dax kicked out. So then they just gave him the shitty double knee lift and beat him flat. So he couldn't even have the out of being fucked because he got hit with a title belt. He can kick out of that, but then they just beat him flat with their finish. And the Buckaroos beat FTR. What a surprise. What a shocking development. Wouldn't you know who won the pony? And
the pony's dead.
The pony is dead. Bury the pony out under the old persimmon tree.
On the streets of London.
And then two guys who I thought were fans that had evaded security got in the ring. One of them was bald, one of them had straggly hair, and apparently that's J.D. Drake and Zach Gibson. They were dressed like they just came in from changing their oil, and they had a stare down with the Buckaroos. And then they turned around and beat up FTR. The Bucks walked off. The bums were staring at them. FTR was laying there selling. So again, the only combination in their tag team division that can make any of the rest of them bearable. And they bring them over there, beat them, and then beat them up and leave them laying. Thank you for coming, Dax and Cash.
FTR's booking and various things have caused them to lose a lot of their luster, but it can never take away from how talented they are in the ring. And like I said before, the Acclaimed are moldable, and the new aggressive version of them, if they're going to call this that, or that this, whatever I'm trying to say here. If you're
that, and the other thing.
Yeah, it's a harder edge than it used to have. That's progress, but this tag team division is a fucking mess, and the grizzled young veterans.
I think they might better take Young out of that at this point, the way they look, but go ahead.
Well, they got a nice reaction, all things considered, but
they're from there.
Well, one of two things happens. Either somehow they're going to get booked really well and help change things for the better, or it's going to be another of these teams or these wrestlers that come off NXT that didn't do anything there that are just going to make everything feel a notch below. I don't know. Maybe I have to be a little more, give them some time and let them do something, but I remember watching them in NXT and not really digging it.
If that's the way that
and part of it's the name. It's an awful name for it.
Well, yeah, it's ridiculous. And they won't use it since they were in NXT with it, weren't they? Or was that before there?
Well, I think they called them that on the pay-per-view, actually.
Well, and they were that before that. Whatever the point is, drop the fucking name immediately, actually, and while you're at it, try to peel both of your faces off and drop them too. And inhabit someone else's body and goddamn get a fucking designer, because everybody else around here is dressing up for these things. That's the problem, is it looked like two guys got in the ring. Two guys. I don't have a lot of hope I know they can't control a lot of their creative in terms of Tony's whims of fancy or whatever. But if they thought we are debuting in a new company in Wembley Stadium in front of 50,000 people on pay-per-view, and this is the way we ought to look when we get in the ring, what the fuck? Anyway, that's just me. Maybe they just need to now be the grizzled veterans. How old are they? How old are J.D. Rockefeller and
Grizzle,
fucking Finn Drake or whatever his name is. Who are they?
I am looking them up right now. The
J.D. Drake and Zach Gibson.
The Grizzle Young Veterans, also shortened to GYV.
Oh, good Lord.
Are an English professional wrestling tag team consisting of...
That sounds like a doctor that would examine your fallopian tubes. I gotta go see my GYV.
James Drake and Zach Gibson. Let's click on them and see their ages. James Drake.
I thought it was J.D. Drake.
Well, it says here James Drake, 31 years old from Blackpool. And Zach Gibson, 34 years old from Liverpool.
Apparently they've led hard lives.
They've got all the pools covered.
Blackpool and Liverpool. Well, pretty soon you're going to be in the jobless pool. All right, so anyway, now it's time for what we've all been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen, the Casino Gauntlet match for a world title shot. So now hold on, what was my statistic? On the previous page, 52 participants in the first 7 matches. Now they announce a match that can have up to 21 men entering at completely random intervals. That would bring us up to 73 participants in the first 8 matches, but they didn't get that far. I don't want to spoil anything, but...
Can I say
yes,
2 things?
Yes.
2 things. One, this explains the questions we had a few weeks ago about why Orange Cassidy wanted to win a 3-way match to be the first person in the match, because you could win the match at any point. But what it doesn't explain was, if Orange Cassidy had won the match right away, does that mean no Zack Sabre Jr. or Ricochet on the show? Were there just surprises in the back waiting to come out that, oh fuck, the match is over, I guess.
Yeah.
That was my Wembley moment, I won't be out there. How do you explain that?
Yeah, that fucking son of a bitch, he won the thing right away. It doesn't make any sense. It's not even, at least with the Royal Rumble, there is some structure to some type of stipulation that you can relate and follow. And this was random entrance times. They're just going to put down the 5-second clock and boom, whenever the spot comes up. And it's just... And they had to have... It's come to this for our friend O'Cody that, he signed for however much money Tony Khan is alleged to be paying him or really paying him or whatever. It's a lot of money. And he can barely move, and he's contributed nothing. And now he's opening up a 21-man casino gauntlet match that he's not going to win, wrestling against the company mascot. That's a pretty fucking precipitous fall, is it not?
The thing is, I don't think they see this match internally as being a step down from like a main event singles match or anything. At least Tony. I think Tony sees this as being one of the big attractions. And I have to say, I enjoyed All In this year more than I did last year. And part of it was just because of the shit show aspect. And this match, it was a mess, but it was entertaining because of, you don't know who was going to come out next. Like the Royal Rumble's entertaining. I've seen a Royal Rumble with awful wrestlers, and I enjoyed the fuck out of it. So, I enjoyed this for what it was, and it was certainly something.
Well, it was for the kind of... Oh, shit, I've screwed up my own line. For the kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like. So, number 3 was Nigel McGuinness. Big ovation. He looks great. He hadn't been in the ring in, 10 years or more? I don't know how long it's been. He's obviously a home country favorite. And he does a face-off with O'Cody. And I'm thinking, here we go. And they started trading fake forearms that didn't touch each other. And then, to be honest, for the next, 2 minutes or whatever it was, Nigel looked better than O'Cody did. I mean, yes, he hadn't been in the ring in a while. He wasn't the Nigel of old, but he did a couple of his trademark things, did the handstand on the turnbuckle. and etc. But you can't even say of the two guys working in the ring, he was the one that was the more impressive. And he's been retired for 10 fucking years. Did I miss something?
No. And, I agree with you. He came right in, Nigel, and he did those forearms. With wrestlers who are out there every week, it's looking awful because everyone's doing it in every match and no one lays it in. And you don't want everyone in every match laying it in. Just everyone shouldn't be doing it.
Don't do it constantly in every match is what we're saying.
And you also shouldn't enter the ring. And again, I know he hasn't worked in a while, and obviously, I'm assuming you don't want to work with him the same way. I don't know. I don't want to assume anything, actually. But to come right in the ring and start with weak-looking stuff is just...
That's why I was kind of like, because you had the anticipation. And then he did some good-looking stuff, but... So why lead with if you go to a restaurant, your appetizer has fucking mold growing on it. You might not savor the main course as much as you normally would. Anyway, then came Kyle O'Reilly. Then came Q-Tip Sabre Jr. Then came Roderick Strong. And then came Mark Briscoe. And I'll pay attention for a minute. And he made a big comeback on Roddy and Cody and did a big dive and then just stood there on the floor while two other guys, they was Sabre and O'Reilly, started doing shit in the ring again. So everybody just comes in and gets a little moment, and then they just stand around at this point. And then Hangnail Page. And then Jeff Jarrett. And, the best punches of the entire show were when Jeff Jarrett, at 53 or whatever he is these days, got in the ring and had a face-off and a little fight with Hangnail Page and made a comeback on everybody. And then Page turned around and powerbombed Jeff over the top rope onto 6 guys that could catch him. And then grabbed Karen, who looked great, by the way. But suddenly music plays, and so he lets go of Karen because that's the rule, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, were you surprised that he grabbed Karen by the throat?
Well, no, they're trying to get him. He's a heel with an edgy personality, and he's antisocial. So no, I wasn't surprised. But again, if you're going to take a bite, you got to chew. And why grab her if he's going to let her go when somebody's music plays that's not even within sight, much less 50 feet of stopping him from just doing whatever he was going to do?
And it's not like the person was running down to the ring or anything.
No, because it was Ricochet. And he's got to make his big entrance first. And then he gets in the ring and has a big exchange with Page. But now at this point, there's some guys still in this match we haven't seen in 10 minutes. They're just fucking laying around somewhere waiting for their next cue. And then Christian comes in because he was in the... Wait a minute. Hold on here. He was in the
Trios ladder match.
Oh, he wasn't in the 16-man. He wasn't in the 10-man. He was in the 12-man 4-way ladder match. Okay. He came out and got in the match, and Jeff broke a guitar over Page's head, and Cage and O'Reilly were down in the ring, and here came Dino. And the Lizard gets in the ring, and it's like he might turn around and hit Cage because of the miscommunication that they had in the earlier match, but instead, he chokeslams O'Reilly and puts Christian on top. 1, 2, 3. So Ricochet made his big debut in the company in a match that not only did he not win, he was barely in it. And there's Cody that didn't win this thing. And there's Hangnail that didn't win this thing. But Christian Cage won this thing. And it took, from start to finish of entrances, everything, well over half an hour. But Cage now gets a world title shot anytime he wants one, instead of any of their stars they've been pushing for, or the guy that they just signed. Why did Ricochet have to be in this thing if he wasn't not only going to win it, but wasn't even going to start and go all the way through and be the phenomenal story of the match?
And the other question is, and it's been a while, this push, does Tony push Christian Cage too much?
Well, I mean, he can work better than most of these people, but was this the spot? Then don't have him win a match that involves the debut of Ricochet. Don't have anybody win the match that involves the debut of Ricochet except Ricochet.
The finish deflated the fans there. It was a shit finish. And this isn't the first finish on the show or the only finish that deflated the fans. And they've teased the Luchasaurus turn on Christian for a while now. For a long while. Going back to the beginning of them being together.
Well, wait a minute. He turned on him once, didn't he? For 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's right.
Did I imagine that? Is that a fever dream?
No, I think that was true. Maybe when he was feuding with Jungle Boy. But yeah, if there was ever a time to pull the trigger, this may have been it because of the pop it would have gotten. But instead you took that away. And again, I don't think people want Christian Cage in the main event picture. That's just my hunch.
Well, you've got a hunch there, but a good surgeon could help you. But I'll tell you, with this show so far, it's like, gosh, there's one turd after another. And then suddenly, the next match we find out is going to be MJF and Will Ospreay. And I'll tell you what, Brian, it's just like when life has been beating you up. When you got one bad thing happening after another. When the cable company turns off your cable to fix something and you don't expect it, or your internet, or you get yelled at work, or you've got trouble and strife, it's always a pick-me-up, like seeing MJF and Ospreay come out of nowhere. It's like, that's what it's like when you get a box of awesome delivered to your door every month. Instant sunshine, lollipops, rainbows, and waterfalls. Instantly, the world is all good, and you're in a good mood because you open up that box, and what's inside, I think I can say confidentially, just to you, Brian, and our listeners, is awesome. You've seen the awesomeness.
I'm like sitting here as you're talking about it, just wait. I'm thinking to myself, when is the next box arriving? I can't wait. It's always a surprise, and it's always something cool.
Yes, and you can't wait to get your hands in that box. And that's exactly what you're going to feel like, ladies and gentlemen, out there when you go to our friends at boxofawesome.com and you see the wonderful things that we've talked about. Well, Brian talks about the knives and various implements of murder, mayhem, and dismemberment that he's collecting for some reason over there. But also they've got camping supplies, they've got cooking items, they've got gourmet cocktail accoutrements, books about these things and things to make these things and savor these things and all points in between. And all you got to do is go to boxofawesome.com and take the quiz. What are you interested in? What do you like to do? What do you like to eat? These type of things, and they will tailor, customize even, these fine products that they find from the small places around the world, Brian. The nooks and crannies, the roads less traveled. Not the big box retailers, but the mom and pop craftsmen. Pop, he waxes this particular piece of craftsmanship with his very own mustache wax. And Mom, she has her very own vaginal lubricant will make sure that your particular item is shining like a new penny when you get it.
These are examples of things you won't be getting with Box of Awesome, but there are a lot of hardworking Americans all across this country, mom, pop, son, sis, everyone.
Yes.
Working together as one, as a country, as a nation, as an idea. And the idea is Box of Awesome coming to your mailbox or doorstep. Tell them how, Jim.
Yes, cousins too. Cousins too. They're the cousins are, especially the kissing cousins. Boy, you ought to see what comes in their box. But I'll tell you what, right now, you can go to boxofawesome.com and enter the code JCE at checkout. You're going to get 15% off your first box of awesome. When you sign up, you can cancel anytime. You can skip a month. It's free to sign up. And you're going to love the various things they're going to send you to put in places that you never even knew you had places. Boxofawesome.com, the promo code JCE.
All right. Well, Box of Awesome is cool, like I said, but let's go back to the match, I guess, that we both wanted to see the most, MJF versus Will Ospreay.
Well, that's why, let me tell you what I did. I cheated. Because when I saw that MJF and Ospreay was coming up next, I said, you know what, after I watch that, because that's really the one I want to see, then it's really going to be drudgery from here on out. So I deliberately fast-forwarded past this match to begin with, watched everything else, and watched this last so I wouldn't go home pissed off, as they say. And you know what? I made a mistake. I should have saved Swerve and Danielson for last. Because there was some element of pissed offness here that I got in this one. But nevertheless, would you like to... Can you tell me what the fuck is going on? Is Will Ospreay a break-dancing ninja? Is he a British Secret Service man like James Bond? Is the African drum music? There were people spinning on their heads. What the well, that's what I don't know how this all tied into his fucking gimmick.
Apparently, Tony heard our segments on Ray Gun and was inspired to bring some dancers. No, they were very talented breakdancers. That woman who looked like Ivy Nile was doing a great job.
Well, yeah, and that's who I thought it was. She had hopped sides and switched organizations because I thought it was one of the WWF girls there.
Yeah, and then apparently they got a sponsorship deal with Assassin's Creed, which is a major video game line. They have a series of games.
Okay, well, they did not relay that information ahead of time.
No, they presume you would know that, yes.
Well, they presume wrong, because I'm sitting there watching it. They say MJF and Ospreay is next. They got the history package between them. And then suddenly, here's drum music and breakdancing ninjas. They're in the black outfits, and they're flipping about, and they're spinning, and there's 5 of them, but the Ivy Nile girl was in the middle. She's the one that spun on her head, but only after she put a hat on. I'm thinking it was a gimmick hat. She didn't do that bareheaded.
That's probably smart. You'd rip your hair out.
Well, it means she was cheating. There's some type of apparatus in the hat, possibly a motor, a propeller.
Oh, come on. You think any kind of hat on your head while you're trying to spin on your head is cheating?
Well, if you're going to spin on your head, then you got to go all the way with it, or elsewise you're just showing off. And then suddenly the lights went out, and then there was a video, and a guy with a Hispanic accent. Now we've had the ninjas, which is from the Far East. We've had the breakdancing, which is from Poughkeepsie. I don't fucking know. We got the drum music for sound like a Tarzan movie. Now a guy with a Hispanic accent introduced himself with what was that name? Did you catch that name, Brian?
What name? What are you talking about?
The guy that was narrating the video said, my name is blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no, I did not catch his name. I didn't even realize he said his name.
Because he threw it like fucking Catfish Hunter at 100 miles an hour. And then they had a video of Will Ospreay on independent shows mixed in with video that looked like it came from the tourist office of the country of Japan with some samurais. And then somebody dove off a fucking roof. And I'm like, what the hell? And the voiceover guy gave him a pep talk about being an assassin because we're assassins and whatever the fuck. And then suddenly when they come back, there are banners on the stage. And then is when you're able to, they start doing the sales pitch and you realize this shit is from a video game. And they've got banners on sale whenever the assassins are us. I don't know. But they've proven they can't sell video games. Did somebody pay them to try to sell video games?
You know, it's funny. I didn't even think of it that way. Yes, apparently they were paid for the sponsorship, and apparently it also ties back to Will Ospreay's nickname. The aerial assassin. I believe he said, I could be wrong, that he took that originally because of the Assassin's Creed games.
Oh boy. All right. Well, they had fun there, and then they played Ospreay's music, and then he made his entrance, and he's over with the crowd, as we have mentioned. And then came MJF. He had 10 girls out there waving American flags, and he was dressed like James Brown in the Living in America video. Ha! I feel good. So...
Or like Weird Al in the Living with a Hernia video.
That's true. That's true. And it may be more like, I'm not sure they successfully got the folks in the United Kingdom to turn on America any more than they already naturally were with just the way we really act. But I wanted this again. I wanted to see the match because this was not only the MJF's the biggest star. Ospreay is the only one of the new signings that you could say make a case for being worth his money because people really do fucking like him. But I think the problem with this was instead of being an MJF match with a little Ospreay, it was an Ospreay match with a little MJF. And that's why they had me, and then they started losing me, and they lost me more as they went along. Do you know what my problem was? Can you see it coming a mile away?
I think I can. MJF is showing too much ass.
No.
Oh.
I'm all in favor of seeing more of MJF's gluteus maximi.
Oh.
He's worked him into excellent shape. You could bounce a quarter off of him like you're fucking making a bed in a barracks in the army.
Well, this took a turn.
But no, it's a video game. This match was a video game. I could, because I started taking notes about, well, MJF got heat with this, and nice sequence where MJF was being a heel and Ospreay flipped over and around him. Very babyface-ish. They're young athletes. They're in great shape, nice gear. They look like somebody. The work at least doesn't look phony or awkward in terms of its execution, like a lot of people on the rest of the show. But then MJF catches Ospreay on one of his dives over the top rope and tombstones him on the floor. And then MJF said, well, anybody can do a flip, and he does a backflip off the springboard backflip off the top rope so that Ospreay can move and MJF can land on his feet and charge, and Ospreay can give him a Spanish fly on the floor. So not only did Ospreay just fucking give somebody a Spanish fly on the floor 30 seconds after he was tombstone pile-driven on the floor, but there's MJF doing springboard backflips off the top, landing on his feet on the ground, even if he did do it and can do it, risking injury for what for? What fucking for was that? But then the point is, everything, MJF shit looks good. But seconds after he does a devastating thing, Ospreay is just flipping around again. He goes from zero to hero faster than anybody I've ever seen. That shit used to be shot down in the first weeks of wrestling school class. But between that and Ospreay, the turning the back on the opponent and making the concentration face and taking the high diver pose and pointing to the rope and then running to it. One time he turned his back, MJF grabbed him by the hair and yanked him down. But it's so performative. It's so fake. He believes he's a video game character. The problem with a lot of this generation is they think they should be video game characters. They're trying to be video game characters rather than believing that they're so good A video game should be made out of them. And so MJF hits a wicked pile driver, and Ospreay is Lords a leaping in 15 seconds. MJF hits a fucking Panama sunrise on the apron of the ring. And yet Ospreay milks the fucking count to 9.5 and then rolls in, but within, again, seconds or whatever, he's doing the Cody cutter on the apron. It's just that. It's a video game. You can't have sympathy for the babyface when the heel's getting heat on him because nothing hurts him. And you can't lose yourself in the drama of the thing because there is no drama. These are not real people. It's a fictitious video game. And Ospreay, he has all the talent in the world. If somebody would produce him, he would be great. Don't turn your back on goddamn your opponent when you're a foot away from him. Don't goddamn get tombstone pile driven and be up doing cartwheels in 32 seconds. That type of thing. But nobody is. He's been in the Indies and been in Japan where you learn nothing applicable to this. And nobody is trying to sit him down and say, hey, you still have to learn what you got to do for this market. And it's just blah. For these fans, especially in Wembley, you can do this. But this is what he avoided by going to the WWE, anybody in a structured system trying to smarten him up. And, that's a thing. And then they do the spot. Ospreay does the elbow off the apron and MJF ducks, so Ospreay takes out the cameraman. Then MJF grabs a title belt and hits him with the title belt and gets a 2 count. And in a brainbuster, it gets a 2 count. And then they knock the MJF into the referee, who takes a nice bump. But while the referee's down, MJF goes for the Tiger Driver. And Ospreay escapes, and he's going to hook him up for it, and MJF gives him the nut shot. And then MJF pulls out the taped knucks out of his tights, because we've already had a title belt, and we've already had the pile drivers on the floor. Now we've got more, and the ring was stolen, apparently. Did you see the tweet on this, Brian?
No, I don't even know what you're talking about, no.
He used knucks instead of the Dynamite Diamond ring because he tweeted earlier in the day, or I guess it was earlier in the day in Wembley, what a shitty country, the Dynamite Diamond ring has been stolen. So do you think, did somebody steal his entire bag? I can't imagine they took it off his hand.
Well, that's the question. Does that mean someone went into his room when he wasn't there? Did someone go through his bag?
What was his bag taken at the airport? Or what,
Was it at the building? Was it one of the wrestlers? Where was Dick Steinborn?
Oh, he was immediately lurking around the locker room area.
Famous locker room thief, for anyone wondering why I'm saying that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. He had good stories, though.
You know what they always used to do if somebody got the reputation, they thought he was the one, he was watch your poke, like Dick Watch Your Poke Steinborn. If they got the impression that it was that guy that was doing it, everybody on the card would start saying before they went to the ring, hey, can you hold my wallet for me? Because then what's the guy going to fucking do, right? Yeah. Of course, it was a subtle way of saying, we know what the fuck's been going on and we're keeping an eye on you. But yeah, somebody's been going in bags and stealing stuff. So the guy you suspect, let him be the one you say, hey, hold my wallet while I go to the ring. What's he going to do? You come back 15 minutes later, son of a bitch, they picked my pocket. Anyway, so MJF pulls out the knucks and he draws back, and another masked ninja grabs his hand and nails him and unmasks, and it's Danny Garcia. And he stands there with all the personality that he doesn't have. with that blank look on his face. And MJF is distracted, and then he turns around and Ospreay hits him with the elbow and then hooks him and hits him with the Tiger Driver, and the referee recovered 1, 2, 3. And that Tiger Driver, MJF landed okay. I would term that as okay. I can see what he did there. But there's not much that the guy taking that can control, because a good percentage of it is up to the guy putting you in the trajectory you're going. And I wouldn't trust this guy, this move, or again, MJF risk his risk his certain WWE future for this horse shit. You know, is he or is he not going to drop him on his head and make the smart fans believe it really hurt? What about you?
I'm not a fan of the move because I'm not a fan of things that look like they could cause a serious neck injury. But they built it up. Now, I said that it didn't get a reaction last week on Dynamite. It got the reaction here.
Yeah.
So it got the reaction. Daniel Garcia did too. We'll see where they go with it. But for this night, those two things, the revelation of Daniel Garcia and the Tiger Driver, both got big pops. MJF didn't just take it, and it looked rough. Even if you say you saw what he did, it looked like it hurt. And then he was
I'm not saying it was comfortable.
And then he was rolled up in that position, and then the referee took a while to get there, and then it was a slow count. So he was stuck like that for 10 seconds, 15 seconds? That couldn't have been easy.
Well, once you've landed and you can still feel your extremities, you got about 10 seconds of, thank God that's over. So he could get by with it. But yeah, too much Ospreay, not enough MJF, in my opinion. And of course, then Ospreay turned down the American Championship belt, and Chris Daniels came out to give him the old international title, because that's what it's back to being called. It's international. It's the world over. England, United States, Liechtenstein, everywhere.
You know, whatever you want to say, I thought it was the best match on the show.
Well, no,
I like the finish. I like the finish of the Danielson, but in terms of the entirety of the match, what I enjoyed, not saying it was a perfect match or anything, I enjoyed that one more than any other match.
Well, Danielson came through. We'll talk about it in a second, because we're not quite there yet. But if it had been anybody else but Bryan Danielson in that spot, yes, and I would agree with you, MJF and Ospreay, but there's something that Danielson has with these people and that he can do that if anybody else had the same kind of match or tried to do the same kind of stuff, it would stink. Does that make sense?
It does. It's his reputation.
Well, that's what he was doing.
It's his reputation and his body of work. That's what it is. They kind of know who he is, and there's enough there that you know what to get behind and whatnot. But anyway, let's.
Well, but he's doing well. We'll come back to it, because the women's title. Didn't we have the women's title earlier? What were the fucking frickin' frack fighting over? Tony Storm and...
Oh, no, this is the TBS championship. The TBS championship.
Oh, Christ, which is a women's title. Because it can never be a men's title now, because a man would have to beat a woman for it to cross over the gendarmes, the genres, the genders. So it's forever a women's title, right?
I guess the question is, what happens if they end up either signing with Warner Brothers Discovery and not being on TBS, or signing with a different network and not being on TBS? What happens to that championship?
Well, then it changes names to the YouTube championship.
The headline news champion is here right now.
the Garden Channel. But anyway, okay. TBS title, women's title, whatever. Mercedes Moon, CEO versus Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. And boy, I think they ought to give us an IOU for this one. Mercedes makes me dislike something involving dogs. Is that a first for my life?
The hell does that mean?
They brought her entrance. They brought her out in the Queen's carriage with the... What do they call them? The footmen, or the archmen, or the toe men, or the heel men, or whatever, pushing the carriage. And Queen Mercedes had the corgis. The corgis are the queen's dogs. You didn't notice that little factoid there?
I saw that. I just wasn't exactly sure what you were saying.
Well, I didn't like this entrance because I don't like Mercedes, but now she's actually made me not like something involving dogs. And that's almost impossible. I would like dogs if the dogs were ripping my flesh from my bones. But this turned me off to the dogs.
All right.
This is her opinion of herself. And besides, she's the heel. Again, why she's the heel? Why is she coming out as the beloved Queen of England with the beloved corgi dogs and the pageantry of the British Isles there? Because she thinks she's a hot shit in the wrestling business. She's a queen. The robe that she was wearing cost more than this whole overblown fucking entrance probably cost. But anyway, I gotta say, it looked like Funk and Briscoe after Tony Storm and Maria were in there. What they were doing here, but their high spots were better than Mercedes's heat. When she takes over, she's too small to control people and too awkward or half a step off with the complicated stuff. To where and as I wrote that, I write a note. That's when she tried the Bobby Eaton slingshot backbreaker and nearly missed dropping Britt Baker on her head trying to bounce her off the ropes. Did you see that part?
I noticed that, yes.
Oh,
I didn't think of Bobby when she did it, though.
Well, no, that's what she was going for. You wouldn't have thought of it by the end result, but that she was going for the old pick him up or pick her up, bounce her off the top rope, over the knee backbreaker, but she almost dropped her on her head, so she got a different grip on Baker and did another kind of slingshot backbreaker, but that one was weak as... That's... All she does is try to do this complicated shit, Mercedes I'm talking about, and it ends up either you can't tell who's supposed to sell the fucking bump, or it's just bleh. She doesn't have the power in that frame to move anybody around where she can do complicated shit and control you enough to protect you. And then how does the glove make it deadly? The lockjaw grip, when it's a fucking red lame glove. It's not the coal miner's glove with metal on the fucking fingers or, Edward Scissorhands. It's a fucking red lame glove.
And I think it was originally introduced, Dr. Britt Baker doing it. It wasn't that it had any powers. It was just that she was being hygienic. And didn't want to get the germs on her fingers because she's a dentist. She was a heel dentist, so she would put the plastic proctology examination glove on and do the finish. But now it's become a sequined Michael Jackson prop, and she's the babyface, and they're fighting over the glove because Britt puts the glove on but can't get the lockjaw. Mercedes sees the glove and puts it on, but Britt picked her up and dropped her on her head and took the glove back and put it on. And Tony Schiavone's line was, if she gets it on, she's going to win this thing. Why?
And it's an awkward back and forth. This is so long and slow. Then the flipping body slam off the turnbuckle woke the people up. But so apparently Mercedes got the title belt and swung, but the referee caught it and took it away. It's not a disqualification just because of intent, I guess, anymore. And while he's putting it out, Britt kicks Camille and grabs the other belt because Mercedes has two belts, and tossed it to Camille and took the bump, the old Eddie Guerrero thing. So the referee turned around and ejected Camille. And then Britt Baker gave Mercedes the Panama City Sunrise or the Alabama Winter is Coming, whatever the fuck that thing is, and a curb stomp and got a 2 count. And I'm like, everything overbooked all the time. Now they've lost all the momentum. and silence ruled the day. And they struggled.
That's what it is, too. I'm sorry to interrupt. You say momentum. There is no momentum because the crowd is dead.
Well, but at least they were active in the ring. The match was going. This is, if they're going to do something, let them go to the fucking finish. When they swing the belt, the referee catches it, putting it out. The other title belt comes into play. The manager takes a bump. The referee turns and ejects the manager. The babyface hits 2 finishes. 2 count. What the fuck? Now they're just selling. Now they're struggling over the lockjaw. Mercedes bites Britt's fingers. That should be the other way around. The babyface should bite the heel fingers. And Mercedes shoves Britt Baker somehow awkwardly into the ropes, botching something, and then hit her finish. And you can't tell whether that's a botch or not normally. 1, 2, 3. She beat Britt Baker just flat in the middle of the ring. What was the thing they were trying to do that looked like Britt just ran into the ropes and then fell away?
I'm not sure, but I've said it before. Mercedes Moné, whatever you want to say about her manufactured personality and just how fake it comes across, and it's all performance to the point where you can't lose yourself in it, she can do stuff in the ring. I'm questioning if Britt Baker can, because we've seen lots of sloppy moments in the past, and sometimes it feels like she can't keep up or she just doesn't have basics down. I don't know. There's something
I think this was a group effort.
Maybe.
I mean,
I'm not saying Mercedes is flair or anything.
How did Britt wasn't responsible for dropping her own self on her head almost off the slingshot backbreaker. I'm not saying that Britt was, Red Bastien here either. Pull a deep cut out. But it would, and then they're trying to do a finish that requires a lot of timing and wouldn't make a tremendous amount of sense if they did it right, because again, the fucking heel, it apparently just beat the babyface. Both of them tried to cheat. The Camille, the manager, was really a non-entity. Minor interference. I don't know what the fuck is going on with this. But so they're continuing not only this program, but Mercedes Moon's push to the stratosphere.
This stuff has been less over than the Toni Storm, Mariah May stuff, I think. And it's not like that's lighting the world on fire. Hayter came back, got a big reaction. Again, it's a comeback. It's also her hometown or home country. I'm not exactly sure what. But big reaction for all the time they've spent on TV with this. Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné, with Camille being added to it. They got the first segment on the show several times. There was nothing. There was no buzz for it. There was no energy for it. There was no excitement for it. I think even though she's a heel, people may start firing rounds if they have to hear that CEO one more time. So I just think this is all missing. This is all just not working. Jamie Hayter came back at a bigger reaction than Britt Baker could get. And they're going to be kept away from each other. The whole natural thing was Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. And now that's not going to be done. So I was not a fan of this match.
Well, and we were 3 hours into the main show with another 2 hours of the pre-show on top of that. It was time for the Coffin match. And boy, I wish I could go to a pharmacist and find something to stop this coughing. Darby Allin versus Jungle Jackoff. And I got to be honest with you, when I saw the first part of this, they started the match on the floor with Darby beating on old Jack with a chair, and Darby had thumbtacks stuck to his face, sticking outwards, so that he could give, I don't know, like Eskimo kisses or something to Jack in a painful manner. And then Darby on the floor sat Jack in a chair and climbed to the top rope. And there is Jack sitting there in the chair staring at Darby, not moving, so that Darby could come off the top rope to the floor and drop kick him out of the chair. And I said, I need a break. So I stopped this and came back later on to pick it back up because I just, you know, again, Darby Allin is another guy that if he had been produced from the start, the WWE could have made him a big fucking deal. He would be making a fortune in merchandise right now. He would be upper middle card with a really good guarantee. And he would have producers not letting him be the stupid fuck that he is in real life. It's no shame in being stupid if you admit that you're stupid and seek help from smart people. But when stupid is surrounded by stupid, Brian, well, that's just stupid.
Is it being surrounded by stupid or being surrounded by people who should be telling stupid, no, don't do that?
Well, they don't, because, and that means they're stupid. And a lot of them, I'm sure, think this stuff that he does is good or smart in any way. So I came back to the match, and they had slowed down to a crawl because Jungle Boy had to bring in the bag of broken glass. And when he dumped the broken glass out in the ring, the fans cheered it. Think about it. They cheered the heel bringing in a foreign object to incapacitate the babyface with.
But they didn't cheer. No, they didn't cheer it. They cheered the idea of this being a throwback to everything with Punk. It's still about Punk.
Well, some of them were chanting CM Punk also at Old Jungle Boy. But
that was the reaction. That reaction was all about CM Punk. The idea that Jack Perry brought out a bag of glass was all about getting a CM Punk reaction, which is sad. I mean, we're a year later. Yeah. You should move past it. Jack Perry's whole life and career can't be based around getting beat up by CM Punk.
Well, they're children. Whether you're a child from Cucamonga or a child from Las Vegas, you can't leave anything alone. And then, of course, Jungle Boy gets dropped into the glass and then hit with a skateboard. And then Jack got some kind of tape and taped Darby's hands together, and Darby was bleeding. And I noted at this point they're not using the ring. And they went all the way up the ramp, and Jungle Jack powerbombed Darby on the stage, and then got his belt and tied his ankles together. So now Darby's ankles are tied together and his hands are taped together. And he threw him off a stage through the fucking table. So I fast forwarded. Finally, Jungle Jack zipped Darby up in a body bag and drug him to the coffin and put him in the coffin and closed the lid. And that was the finish. And then, hold your comments, Brian. I know you're going to want to say something. Here come the Hardley boys, Matt and Nick, with a fake gas can that looks like they got it off of the goddamn set of Saving Private Ryan.
Petrol.
And it was full of probably iced tea is what it had. At least they bothered to tint it a little bit. And they pour it all over Darby, and there's Jackie Boy lighting a Bic like they're going to set him on fire. When suddenly the lights go out, and it's Sting! And Sting walks to the ring and no-sells everything and beats up the Bucks and gives them a double scorpion death drop. And they play the music, and he goes down and gets Darby out of the coffin.
What kind of payday you think he got for that?
Oh, I was tens of thousands of dollars, but besides that, what? So they give old Jungle Boy his win, and they let Darby do all the stupid things that Darby does when an adult is not in the room to tell him no. But why did they have to make the whole thing silly and ridiculous with the gas can and the gas and the light? And no, you're not going to light him on fucking fire, you fucking silly children.
Well, you just answered your own question. Jack Perry and the Young Bucks.
Silly children.
Who do silly things always on this show, and it never helps the company, but they don't see it.
So that was what happened there. Any thoughts on this? The fine points of this technical classic that I might have missed?
Not much to say that you didn't already say. Like I said, the one thing was I was pretty sure because it was Wembley and it was Jack Perry and these guys can't let go of any of that stuff. They were going to do something punk related, and they did. So hopefully that's the end of it. Hopefully they really can move on this time.
Well, we'll hope, but we won't cross our fingers and hold our breath. But then it was time for the main event of the evening for the AEW World Heavyweight title, Danielson's career versus Swerve Strickland's world title. What's it going to be? Who's going to do what? And I like this match better than anything else on the show. Basically for Danielson's performance and the way that he can, take these people on a ride with him. And it was a wonderful moment. And who is going to beat him for this thing? This has to be a short-term title reign, one would think, when he's talking publicly about having neck surgery by Christmas or whatever.
Although that would be an interesting thing. If every match he has, you think this has to be the match he loses it because he keeps saying these things and then he never loses. So he keeps having to come back and defend it.
I don't know. I don't know. But he got the final countdown again. So again, every time a bell rings, some music publisher gets a new Ferrari from Tony Khan.
No one more than them. They're notorious for charging a lot. So that's another. What did we hear last time? It's a wrestler salary.
Couple $100,000.
Yeah.
But that means everybody in the building only had to pitch in $4 a piece, and they could pay for it. But the people are into him. They're into the song. They're into Yes. There was Nikki and the kids at ringside. What's a Birdie and Buddy?
I believe so, yes.
Birdie and Buddy and
Nikki and the kids, Bree and the kids.
Which one is it?
He's married.
Well, they're twins. All right, but you can't blame me. They're twins. How am I supposed to tell them apart?
Well, he says their name, Brie Bella. That's his wife.
Well, you think they ever pulled a Swizz itch on him just for fun?
No comment.
Anyway.
Who's fun?
And they well, it just depends. It could be fun for the whole family. And then Jim Ross was on color. He wanted to call this, if this was Danielson's last match. Swerve made his entrance. He had a new outfit on him. Prince Nana put the cape on him. And then rappers came out and rapped. Were they anybody that we should know, and were they any good? Because I can't tell either.
Well, I don't like the song, but I can't tell you. I don't know too much about these specific rappers and what was going on here.
Well, it was sort of like when I watched Ray Gunn do the breakdancing. I don't really know what the good stuff is supposed to be like by heart, so I couldn't tell whether this was any good or not. But nevertheless, all the fans were doing Swerve's house. So he gets some heat later on in this match because of what Danielson was doing. But they're encouraging people to cheer for the heel at one moment by doing this and starting this, and then he's trying to get heat, so they'll boo him the next month. So I'm not sure what's happening there. But they started out okay, and then Danielson hit the big springboard cannonball to the floor, and they popped. And then Danielson, this match was more serious, more professional, stiffer, potentially not dangerous, but stiff in a good way than anything else on the show, I think. And I did note again Excalibur.
Oh.
I want to call him by his name instead of Sockface or Shit for Brains, or because I want everybody to know he was falling apart. he was killing this match. He was the worst announcer ever on major television.
Wow.
I mean, think, who else has led a nationally televised program? Maybe that Mike Adamle. We weren't even watching then, but my God, this guy, he's trying to talk like he's fucking Pat Summerall, and he fucking sounds like Pat McGroin. He's trying to search for, verbose and flowery ways to say these things, like a Jim Ross or a Gordon Soley or a whoever the case in there. And no, he's a fucking nerd and a mark. And did you see Swerve give Danielson the Death Valley driver on the apron of the ring with Nana shoving the ring bell under Danielson's head?
In front of his family. Yes, I did.
In front of his family. What a fucking bump. And they did it just perfectly, but there was absolutely zero room for fucking error. And that could have been a hospitalization angle. But the only problem was then the next time you saw Danielson, he's bleeding from the front of his head when the back of his head hit the bell. So he hit him so hard in the back of his head, the front of his head busted open. And he stomped the shit out of Danielson on the floor in front of Nikki and the kids, or Bree and the kids. I wonder if they've done a DNA test to find out which one of the sisters is the real mother. Think about that now.
Well, I think it was the one that was pregnant at that time.
Well, that could be to lull you into a false sense of security, see? Confuse the issue. It's all part of the big work.
Who do you think they're working, him?
Well, it just depends on it. Just follow the money.
What money?
Well, that's the root of all evil.
What are you talking?
You're asking me questions. I'm answering them. I don't know.
So obviously, just to take a step back, money is the central issue in the Nikki and Brie Bella wife swap situation that Bryan Danielson's unaware of.
Yes, in order to convince him that those are his kids so he'll pay for them. And they're diverting some of that money probably into a Swiss bank account. And it'll come out one day. And that's how they switch off every 6 months. They assume each other's roles because they're twins, see? That's the way it works.
Yes, so.
It's going to be a whole big thing one of these days.
Maybe on AEW TV, who knows?
On AEW television. So, I mean, Danielson did the big suplex off the top rope and the stomps and the cattle mutilation. But Swerve escaped and dropped Danielson on his head, and they did another referee spot where he calls the doctors in to look at Bride. But the problem was that it didn't even look that bad for... MJF just got dropped on his head. It looked a lot fucking more concerning than the bump that they took here. So I think they ought to be more judicious with their... Let's call the referee in. This could be... He's paralyzed. It didn't shock anybody. Nobody went... But anyway, Swerve then, he's double stomping him and he's head kicking him. And he's getting 2 counts. And then... as Swerve starts kicking him over and over, Danielson starts hulking up. And this is where the people really started blowing. And at that point, this is wrestling. Danielson selling this shit, the look on his face, the intensity on his body, and then the comeback and the yes kicks. They had the people there. And again, I said if it was anybody else doing this shit, but Danielson, it wouldn't work. But then Danielson hit the big knee and Swerve got knocked back into the turnbuckle and then no-sold it, walked out and brushed it off and kicked him in the head. And I went, what the fuck? That looked out of place. But then Swerve starts kicking the shit out of Danielson and the people start going, no, no, no. And then suddenly Hangnail Page comes over the rail and shoves Nana down, and security grabbed him and took him out. So he was playing the George the Animal Steel at Shea Stadium part in this extravaganza, wasn't he?
I thought he was good actually doing that. You know, he's starting to come into his own a little bit as the crazed maniac, desperate hangman. And
he's been coming into his own ever since he was a young teenager.
Oh, will you stop it?
You could do that.
I don't know how that's even physically possible, ladies and gentlemen, unless you're Lanny Poffo, of course, the genius of glory and renown. But yeah,
but no, I'm not saying it wasn't a good intervention at ringside. I'm just saying that's like George Steele had to come out and try to interfere with Bruno and Pedro, and the cops had to drag him back.
The difference, too, is that people who went to that Shea Stadium show said that was the highlight of that entire match.
Yeah, that's true. And so then Danielson hits the big knee again. This time he gets a 2 count. And then they go back and forth, and Danielson hits another knee, and they come unglued again. And then another knee, and the LeBell lock, and Swerve taps out, and the place goes nuts. And then they do the celebration with Nikki and the kids. I think Bree was there, too, by that point. And
that's right.
You know, as a matter of fact, you've heard the problem. You know, Danielson, he's very health conscious. He has the great diet, but he was going to try to stick to being vegan, but he couldn't give up eating brie.
All right. You know, that's a step too far. Let me ask you a question. Despite the cinematic beauty of the big ending here, any uncomfortableness, anything you don't like about a guy bleeding right in front of his kid?
Well,
I mean, there were points in the match he was right in front of them, and he was bleeding all over the place.
He's obviously they've smartened him up because they're both in the business, but the kids apparently are pretty decent workers, because sometimes you get the family having inappropriate reactions, but at the same point, you know that as nice as Bryan Danielson is, I've never met his wife, but he's not going to make the kids think this is real and daddy's really being hurt. So they've had some kind of educational process going on at some point there. But at their age, nuance is probably hard to explain. So I think they've had to have told him, hey, this is all play acting. It's for TV and daddy's not really hurt, but I'm going to look like I'm in a horror movie type of thing. I would bet you. But you got to help us. You got to be scared of the bad man too. Type of thing. But I wasn't, this wasn't like, you know, when Cactus got fucking handcuffed and they're caving his skull in with a chair over and over in front of his children, who there's absolutely no way that this can't be dangerous to this person. This was a match, and it was a good match, and I can see where they could have coached the kids, but the kids wouldn't really be worried. To answer your question.
Yeah, that was the only thing that made me feel a little uneasy. Just the idea, here are these little kids, including the daughter, who, from what we hear, is the one saying, please retire, I want you at home, daddy. And there he is bleeding a gusher right in front of them.
Well, but she's saying, please retire, because I don't want you to leave home, rather than, you know, but yeah, you're going to die.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe before the match was like, please meet Uncle Swerve. You know, hey, kids.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there was an element of that also. But I think the son... I think if they really wanted to make a great spot for the kid, he should have come over the fucking rail with a miniature pocket knife and tried to stab Swerve.
Oh, stab him? Now, this is a step too far. And this is in a foreign country that would have all gotten in a lot of trouble.
Well, no, they still speak English.
Right, but you
can explain a stabbing a lot easier when you're speaking the same language.
Well, I don't know about that, but they got the big moment, and Tony Khan at the media scrum afterwards, he had Bryan Danielson there, and Danielson said Tony had to drag him kicking and screaming into accepting the world championship, into being in this role, which is interesting because you would think if you come to AEW to help him, you kind of want to be there. Danielson's a different kind of guy. You know, he wants to do his thing, but he's maybe not the assertive type or the type who really wants to put himself in front of everyone else. But Tony clearly wanted that and wanted this big moment, and he got it. I guess, what did you think of the moment there at the end? Was this the right way to end the show? And seeing this now, have they made a mistake at all in the last 3 years not putting the belt on him or elevating him further, notwithstanding the injuries?
Well, if he didn't want it, I mean, he would have been a lot better champion than many that they've had. If he didn't want it, that's another thing. And he has been out hurt somewhat. The moment was great. I would have thought that they would try to make this Wembley about the moment with confetti falling from the ceiling and a guy holding a title over his head. It'd be Ospreay. Because you've got years of him left, I'm sure. Tony probably signed him to a 20-year contract. And he's young, or younger at least, and he's new and fresh, and the people like him. With Bryan, this was a great moment. But how is it going to be a moment that jumpstarts business in America, brings the ratings up, a new personality on top, house show gates, whatever, on a long-term basis where in 18 months we're putting a package together? Oh, let's go back and pick that spot out where he's raising the belt. Oh, he's already retired. He doesn't wrestle here anymore. I'm trying to figure out where they're going with this, how to coronate a new top guy that will have momentum by beating Bryan Danielson for this title. Because they can't, if they've done this without having who that is and how it's going to be done in mind, then in a couple months they're going to be going, oh yeah, fuck, he's kind of fucked up and probably needs surgery, and who are we going to put it on now?
And obviously we saw what Tony did with Sting. It would be a mistake for Danielson just to vacate and retire or semi-retire, correct?
Oh, good Lord. Can you... So you beat Swerve. He's going to be around for quite a while, but you beat him. And you've got the world title on a guy that's just going to kind of fade out here fairly soon, one would think. And then you're going to have a tournament again for another title again. No, if you've done this with Bryan, fine. What major star is it MJF now that he is no longer the international champion? It can't be Swerve again.
Well, that's actually one of the people, Douglas Jones on the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. That was kind of his question.
Sounds like a fake name.
If I'm Daniel Bryan, I'm insisting on losing to Swerve on my way out the door, not just for tradition, but his legacy and what it would do for Swerve heading into a program with Will Ospreay. What do you think about that? I mean, should Swerve... If there wasn't for this whole Danielson story, would Swerve still be the champion? You think he'll be a transition just to get right back to Swerve?
No, if Swerve is going to go into a program with Ospreay, Ospreay's got a fucking belt. Swerve would be challenging for that. You can't just do this big thing. Danielson won at Wembley Stadium, 50,000 people. Oh, and Swerve won it back.
Yeah, and I think they're going Ospreay Fletcher next. But I could be wrong.
Oh, good Lord.
I could be wrong.
I hope you are. But I mean, who is a name that could benefit and draw with the world title and carry the thing? And I'm trying to think of their available people. MJF just lost a belt. Will that be the consolation prize that in a couple months he ends up the world champion? Otherwise, who should be the world champion in this company besides Bryan Danielson?
Just spitballing here, so I'm not saying I endorse this or anything. But looking at the history of AEW and the champions that have done better than others in terms of ratings or drawing houses, Moxley, it would be a way to end everything with him and Danielson in the BCC and also give Moxley a hard heel turn.
Oh,
Christ. I'm not saying I endorse it, but you're asking who's at that level where they should be or could be the world champion there. There are limited options.
Okay, there's two people.
You don't want to elevate someone like Ricochet and put him in that position right now, I wouldn't think.
Well, gee, he couldn't even win the fucking match he debuted in. And no, he's not the world champion. He's the another entertaining gymnast. Oh, yeah, hangnail. They tried that. That sucked. So I don't know who the world champion is going to be. Maybe they don't either.
Well, that was AEW All In London 2024. They'll be back in London for All In 2025 or 2026. Next year will be in Texas in July, I believe.